Hi, I'm Paul Blackburne from Blackburne Property Group, and I'm someone with a goal.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Someone with a Goal. It's your host Quinton here, and today we have an exclusive interview with Paul Blackburne, successful owner, founder and managing director of Blackburne Property Group, one of Perth's biggest apartment developers specializing in high-end luxurious apartments. Now in our sit down, Paul shares his upbringing, growing up as an average academic and attributing a lot of the success he has today to what he did after completing school, traveling the world. Now Paul reflects that it was during those years of travel at a time with no mobile phones, no internet, he learned how to budget and how to become resourceful, working different jobs, adapting to different cultures. It matured him quickly, and on his return home had become a much more grateful and stronger person. Today, with a property empire worth over $500 million, numerous business awards and accolades, it is his 5 years of overseas experience that reminds him to never let money, wealth and success get to him. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview, and I hope it inspires you. And with no further ado, sit back, relax and enjoy this powerful interview with businessman, father and philanthropist, Perth's own Paul Blackburne. Enjoy. Paul, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Really, I just want you to paint the picture for us on before Blackburne Property Group and before the success and before the accolades that I see you have. Could you take us back to what was Paul like back in the day, really just your upbringing, and really just share your story on your experiences growing up?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Gooseberry Hill, went to Gooseberry Hill Primary School, so grew up in the hills. My parents were both from country WA, father from Albany and mother from Nungarran, so very much a country background for grandparents. But yeah, brought up in the hills in quite a normal, I guess, Perth, Australian 1980s and 1990s environment. So there's a large block with lots of bush around us. And grew up through the 80s in primary school, and then on to high school in the late 80s and early 90s. And went to Guildford as my school for the later years of primary school and high school. And then on to Murdoch University to study marketing and management. But yeah, growing up, my main thing wasn't necessarily super academic. I was sort of, I tried fairly hard and work. I probably middle of the road in sort of academic results, but always probably communication skills were my main thing rather than just maths and science. But I was okay at those things, but was never the top of the class in maths and science sort of kid.
You play sport?
That was my main thing at school, was swimming. I swam sort of 4 hours a day. So a lot of the discipline I have now, I think, came from that. I think having, as a teenager in your 20s, a sporting background is a really strong basis for entrepreneurs and business to have a sporting background. And you do find, a lot of sports people do go on to have businesses and be entrepreneurs. And swimming's a really tough one. Like that competitive swimming, you're 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. every day.
Well, so you're competitive swimming. So you're in there. Oh wow.
Yeah. So, a really good team at their Maida Vale Swimming Club, and we, would have 4 hours a day together. So I think it was every morning from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. So you're up at, I think I had 5 years, my alarm going off at 4:37 from memory. It's ingrained in my memory. And, even in winter when it's 0 degrees and you're in the pool at 5, Monday through to Saturday with, I think, Wednesday mornings off, and then every afternoon, Monday to Friday. So
that training, that discipline.
That's all you do, and that's 11 months of the year. It was 1 month a year off, start of winter, then you're back training for the national championships the next year. So it's 11 months of training. So swimming is a really intense background and a very tough sport. Although it's an individual sport, it is also very much a team sport. A lot of people sort of say compared to footy, you missed out on that football or cricket team thing, but you do form very strong team bonds in swimming, in your swimming team. So
what was your key stroke? What was your main stroke?
I was a butterflyer mostly, 100 and 200 butterfly, so pretty tough events, but that was my main strength, butterfly and freestyle.
The business that you have here, if you can fill in the interim, what happened in between that gap? That's really interesting.
So after school, I went to study business and commerce, marketing and management. I think I never thought I'd get into property. My father had a real estate business called Blackburne Real Estate in the 60s, 70s and 80s. And then he did some property development, our property management, project marketing into the 90s. So I always thought I'd never do property. That was never something I thought I'd end up
Wanted to pursue property, you had no aspirations?
I didn't think I'd end up staying in Perth. I went to go overseas for about 5 years after university. I had 5 years overseas, and I think when I finished studying, I thought it was unlikely I would end up living in Perth. I had a strong interest in what was happening in Asia. China was starting to rise. At the time when I was at university, actually, Indonesia was meant to be the next China. Like that's how much has changed the last 20 years. That 1993 to 1996, I was studying and traveling a lot. Or every university holiday, I'd spend traveling into Asia usually. And really was exploring Asia in the mid-90s, and just couldn't wait to finish university and go travelling. I saved up enough money for a one-way ticket to China, and in 1996, I think it was, around mid-90s, got a one-way ticket to China, and my goal was just to get to the centre of China, wherever that was. And I just went, right up through the middle. And so China was a lot different place 23 years ago now than it is now. So it was obviously mostly rural communities and villages, particularly as you got towards the centre of China. And then worked my way back overland through Vietnam and Cambodia, Laos and Thailand. And then as you do when you're sort of 22, 23 backpacking, ended up back in Perth broke, and then I thought I had to save enough money to go to Europe. So I worked as a graduate trainee in marketing and sales with Peters and Browns. The Peters Ice Cream, Browns Dairy, had quite a big business in Balcutta, and worked for them and the sales and marketing department. But then after a year or two of that, thought, no, my goal was to live outside of Perth, and then went to London and worked through really a year in Europe and London, a year in North America, and about 6 months in the Middle East, and a bit more time in Asia. I think over that period was really about post-university. I just thought before I get a mortgage and work and borrow money for a business or something, I just want to see the world and then decide what I want to do, and that just ended up going for 5 years. So, but it was a good way to learn how to budget, living off probably $100 a day or something for 5 years, right up until I was probably 26, 28 years old.
Because I read you did some diving in Egypt. As a job. You did, I think you were at this Canadian ski resort as well, where you did some work there as a way to get income. Yeah. So you were also, obviously in situations where you had no money, you also working ways to get an income so you can...
Yeah, usually I just work in an area where I thought it was something I'd enjoy, but also trying to save enough to travel to the next place. So London, I worked in recruitment for a year with TMP worldwide, and we were recruiting Australians to work in London, saved some money. Then I think I had enough of the big city stresses and thought, I'd be interested to be a dive master or a dive instructor, and I went down to Egypt, travelled through Egypt for a while, and then ended up in the Red Sea in Dahab in the late 90s, we did 3 or 4 months sort of, doing my more professional courses in diving. Then after a while I thought, okay, I've done that, I'm not sure that's for me. And then spent about I think 3 or 4 months after that, going overland from Cairo to Istanbul, through Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Egypt, and then up through Turkey. So that was probably I can't remember the time, probably three to 6 months of hitchhiking, buses, trains, or however you could to get up to Turkey.
From your personal experiences as travelling, how important is travelling or going overseas to finding yourself?
Yeah, for me it was really important. I think I would encourage anybody, I think post-university and post-school, there's no need to rush into starting a business and trying to make money and getting a job. And it was certainly, like that in the 90s. And I think there's probably more pressure on young people now to finish university and get into a big company and play it safe. Parents will tend to say they want you around when you're 18, 25. Play it safe, get into a company, work your way up, or start a business and borrow some money, get a mortgage, settle down, have kids. That there's plenty of time to do that. And one of the things I heard in my early 20s that really resonated with me was someone older said, there's plenty of time to do that stuff, but you've got a really unique window when you're in your 20s to travel the world without any mortgage, any responsibility, any kids, and you can do what you want. So I thought that's a great idea. So I'll do that for 5 or 10 years before even thinking about family, mortgages, buying a home, borrowing to start a business, and just use that. That's the biggest thing I'd encourage anyone younger to do, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, even 40s, if you haven't done it, to have 2 to 5 years just traveling. And people think, well, how do you get the money? Where are you going to stay? Well, it doesn't cost that much to travel. Following books like Lonely Planet, back then it was all the Lonely Planet guidebook. Now there's a lot of more online put in place, but Lonely Planet's still the leader in affordable travel. You can travel really cost effectively and do a lot, and there's always lots of things to do and see.
I suppose there's so many experiences and cultures that you also get to see another perspective on developing countries as well. I think we're privileged here as opposed to not being able to see the other side of the world.
It is, and I got to see, I think I went through 52 countries or something, so you got to see lots of different, from rich, poor, from London, from wealthy cities, London, New York, and European cities, right through to say Cambodia and China. Those times were a lot poorer places. So having a perspective on seeing the whole world from rich to poor, but also different cultures, and and not necessarily just relying on what you've seen in the news or the media to make your decisions about what's going on in the world. Actually go and decide for yourself and go and see it.
Nice. So you've come back to Perth after your overseas travels. What happens after that?
Yeah, I came back in 2001, so 18 years ago now, and I thought I would just come back. I'd been in the Middle East and London, and I thought I'll just go home for a while. I'd been away for quite a while and see what happens. I was probably 26. And I thought I'll just see what happens, and I ended up saying to my father at the time in Blackburne Real Estate, look, he had needed some help in the sales and marketing side of his business, and got in there and did that for 3 to 6 months and enjoyed it, and made some money, and thought, okay, this was pretty good, and had a couple of years working for him and his partners. But then after a few years, I really settled into Perth and thought, I'm either going to move to Sydney or back to London or stay here. And then I thought, no, if I stay here, I want to have my own business. If I'm going to be in Perth, it's got to be my business. I just couldn't envision myself working for somebody else. And I wanted to make sure I did it purely on my own and my own resources. So I took a loan out. I think it was about $600,000 at the time, and bought part of the rent roll, the property management role from the business I was working for, the partnership of 4 partners that I was working for. They had property management rent roll, residential property management, and because it has long-term recurring income and it's a fairly safe asset, you can borrow against it. So I borrowed to buy against that asset on a 10-year loan and paid that off 5 years ago. So it was just a monthly payment for 10 years, and that sort of just came out. So that was really the start of what Blackburne Property Group is now. Property management's probably 5% of our business now, but it was a part of the start. But really that was there just to form a basis for the business and get the business up and running so I could go and do the property development side of things.
I know you specialise in high-end, high-quality luxury apartments. And so what was your first site, and how did you get that ball rolling?
So my first 5 years, from 2003 when I started the business, the first 5 years I was really development consultant and project marketing to other developers. So one of the reasons I learnt how to do property development was watching what not to do from others. So some were very good and some weren't so good. So that was a really good traineeship for me from 2003 to 2008, and learning from others and seeing what they did. And really we were doing the marketing, design, sales, settlements, for a whole range of different developers. But I was quite lucky in that time as well. Although I'd started the business in 2003, the economy was quite flat, but it really started to pick up 4, 5, 6, 7 as that first wave of the WA mining boom came. So yes, I worked hard. Yes, we had a great business, but we were also very lucky in that the economy went through a once in a generation boom. And so I worked for all these developers. In 2007, with the global financial crisis hit, I think it was, I saw the news, I still remember it, I was living in a small apartment in Subiaco, and I saw the news, and I remember Lehman Brothers collapsed and the stock market had gone down. I thought, oh, I had just really ramped up our business up to over 100 staff, and I had offices in the East Coast, and I thought, oh, this is bad. And luckily Perth went through a second phase of the mining boom, but I still had to really cut costs, restructure the business. I had a whole lot of different businesses within Blackburne Group, and some were profitable, some not so profitable. So I shut down some business units we had and really cut our costs and got back to basics, which was just focusing on doing our own developments and just Perth developments. And really it was the right thing to do. I stopped the focus on trying to grow in the East Coast. And luckily that was the right thing, because Perth really then took off again. So all our time and energy was in WA. So there was 5 years of that, from 2003 to 2008, of some of my own smaller developments on the side, but mostly working for other developers. And then the last 10 years is really when I've been doing my own projects, 10 to 12 years, where I be using the money the company had made, being opportunistic and just buying sites when the market was down, 7, 08, 09, when the market was a bit quieter, was able to buy some really good development sites, and then the market took off again.
So and you just rode that wave
there,
as well.
the right time and the right place, and then we gave up working for other developers. We said we're not going to do this consulting to other developers now, because
you know you're good.
Competition, and we also felt we couldn't give the right service to them. It was a service-based business, and becoming a developer, then a manufacturer, you're manufacturing your own product. So rather than offering a service, we thought, no, we'll go into being our own developer, and that was the right decision. I think in any business, to focus on the areas that are profitable, right, and easier and lower risk than a lot of entrepreneurs and young people start businesses, and just the first thing you do in a business, you just grab any business you can get. Everybody does that. They just chase every dollar they can get, and it takes 5 years to work out that that's not good. You've really got to pick your clients and pick your business unit, and not take on everything you can get.
Just for our viewers out there who are starting their business at the ground level, let's say if I was to drop you into a country where you've never been before, and you are to rebuild what you've built here, what key skills that you think that you could take over there to pretty much just replicate what you've built here for you?
Yeah, I think the key skills in building a business would be, firstly, there's no substitute for hard work. I mean, it's a very common thing, but I heard that before I started a business, and you hear it, but you don't really believe it till you're in there.
You're actually in the game.
There is no way. Sometimes you think, oh, this is actually easier than I thought, but then something will happen, like the GFC, or some major problem will go wrong in the economy or with your staff, and you go, no, this is when it's hard. So there's no substitute for hard work. Secondly, I just think being open, honest and fair with people. I think with not just with your stakeholders, with clients and external people, with staff. And I think that then comes through in the culture of your business, which means clients stay longer, staff stay longer. It's a more satisfying work environment for you and for everybody, and just makes it easier to come to work every day. Knowing you're doing your best to do the right thing. Doesn't always work out perfectly, but you've got to at least try and always do the right thing by your staff and by your clients and by yourself and your family. So I think working hard, trying to do the right thing, if I had to pick a third thing that to really focus on would be focus on growth, but not too fast. Don't grow too fast. Is growing steady and slow.
Just consistent, small steps.
With compound growth is far better than so many young businesses go wrong when they don't have the systems and the procedures in the background. They grow and they don't have the background to have it, and that's very hard to explain till you've been through it. But it can be just simple things like your accounts aren't being properly recorded, or you've got a client and the contract's not being signed properly.
So these are minor things, but obviously pay a bigger...
Very important, and they only come with time. It takes time. And the fourth thing, probably, if you finding people that are better than you in their specific area. Like a lot of businesses and entrepreneurs feel intimidated by people smarter than them or better than them, but I think the best business leaders or best leaders in politics or business surround themselves with people that are either better or smarter than them in a certain area. So not being intimidated by people that have, whether they're more intelligent or higher IQ or whatever. I've always just tried to find people that are better than me in a certain area and surround myself with that
environment.
Yeah, and I think if you stuck to those four things, that's a pretty good basis for building and growing a business.
Yeah. The team here you have at Blackburne, and obviously the team that you're surrounded with, how important is it for you as a leader to make sure that they have the vision, that they follow your vision in terms of your growth and where you want to be in the next, say, 5-10 years' time?
Having a vision and being able to communicate that to a team and have people come along to you is probably the hardest thing in starting a business and an entrepreneur. And that's something that some people are just genetically better at it than others, but everybody can learn, I think, through persistence and hard work. And I think it's to be a visionary in the first place, to have the vision, you've got to surround yourself with good people to take care of, say, the detail. If you are a visionary or an entrepreneur, there's having people that are better at you, that systems, procedures or detail. So your mind's not getting bogged in the procedural administrative side, and you can stay in the bigger picture is really key. And then being able to articulate a vision in I'd call it sound bites, in really short, clear ways. So say 5 things. I might say in my head I'm going to use 5 words to describe 5 things about the vision. But if you start rambling on, it gets too complicated, you lose it. So it's talking generally for maybe 5 minutes, but going, this is what it means. It's these 5 things we're focusing on in our vision. This is where we want to get. And obviously believing in your vision. People comes through. If you're enthusiastic and energetic about your vision, then that energy is infectious, and other people will get that energy. So being able to have a vision and establish what it is, and it's got well researched, well thought out, and then being able to effectively communicate that in clear and concise ways, but doing it honestly so that people can see the energy that you've got.
Just going to change pace here. Thanks for that, Paul. Really just want to go back on. I know that there's an area that we're struggling with as a dad. You're a father, and I'm a father. So how do you, as an entrepreneur, balance business with family?
Yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs or business people do struggle to have a balance, a work-life balance, and everybody struggles with that. I think nowadays, but particularly entrepreneurs and business owners. I'm pretty disciplined. I've got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old to try and be home for dinner with them, and bath for young kids and put them to bed, and that I think is a good routine for parents that are working full time. At least you get that time with your young kids each day. And then pretty much every weekend from Friday afternoon to Monday morning is with kids. So just trying to spend as much quality time with them as you can. Yeah, and where possible in the mornings, and just get your time with them. But a lot of people in entrepreneurs, I think there's a lot of 50, 60, 70-year-old people out there that if you said to them, what do you wish you'd done differently? They say, I wish I'd spend more time with my kids. And when I had kids, I was older, I was 40, so 39, and I'd seen enough stories to go, no, I'm not going to do that. And also, I didn't have kids till the business I felt was in a position where I could not have to work as hard. Like the first 10 years, I was probably working 60 to 80 hours a week. Not necessarily at my desk in the office 80 hours a week, but I would have. It's pretty. There's no hours. It's when you're not sleeping, you're working. So I don't think that works. Would have been what I wanted with kids. People can do it. If you don't have any choice, well, that's your choice. You do it. Might be for a period of time, but I didn't want to have young kids and be working all the time.
Paul, how effective for you has been book smart, but also street smart?
In my case, I would say the academic qualifications would be less than 50% of the relevance for what you do. I'd say somewhere between 30 and 50%. A majority of it is your world experience, your ability to communicate, your work ethic, honesty, integrity, all those sort of things I think are far more important than an academic qualification. Saying that, if I'm going to be in business and it's a marketing and management style thing, to have a degree in marketing and management certainly doesn't hurt. It's good, but it's certainly not essential. I mean, there's plenty of examples of some of the world's most successful business people that finished school in year 10 and didn't really 11, 12 in uni. So, but it's good. If it's there, I'd say do it. It's not everything, but while you're young, if you're between 18 and 21, I'd say do it. If you can, it's good to pick a degree and do something post high school if you want it, if it's in an area where you think you'll have interest. So if it's in entrepreneurship, then commerce is, I didn't know what I wanted to be or study, so commerce is a good one where I just go, okay, it's very general. It can take you in so many areas to study commerce, and you can major in marketing or management, different things. So I just picked marketing and management.
Cool. Obviously, you won Entrepreneur of the Year, 2014. You also 40 under 40. But what's most significant to me is your work in your philanthropy work in Cambodia. What inspired you to do that?
University, I was involved in an international organisation called ISEC, and it was really, we got to travel a bit, and I thought if I make money one day, I want to be able to do something with that. It's, once you've got your house paid off and your business and a car and all that, there's not much else you need money for. So really that was the motivation for me from one of the main drivers in the start is, you can only have so much money, and the reason it sort of kept me going was at some point I want to be able to do something with that money. And there's a lot more I'm going to do, but one of the small ways I started was around 5 years ago working with the Cambodian Children's Fund, and we jointly co-founded and I funded the start of a child protection unit up there. And I think the reason I picked that was I'd done quite a bit of travel in Cambodia and been up there a bit when I was younger, and I thought it had a pretty tragic story, and I thought if there's any place that needs some help, then this is where I want to do if I ever have any money. Other countries, Australia and Western countries had enough money, governments to sort out some of their issues, but that was one country, particularly 20 years ago, that did need help. Certainly I think some of the things that our partners in Cambodia are doing are fantastic. But that really for me was more of just a small start and a test case of how you can do something, use money to partner with good people and trying to find the right formula. and that is now operating successfully in Cambodia, and a great management team up there, and they're driving that organisation forward. So but that's great to know. There's something being able to help found, and then now it's off and running and self-sufficient. So really, now the focus for me is looking at what's the next 10 years, what are those things, and I'm working on some things at the moment that I'll be able to talk about next year and the year after.
Awesome. Paul, I'm just going to go into a quick game, and this game is I'm going to fire you a few words, and just the first thing of what these words mean to you. It can be a word or phrase. The only thing is you can't repeat the same word. Okay, so the first word is success.
Hard work, dedication.
Struggle.
Get up again.
Entrepreneurship.
Dedication.
Business.
Honesty.
Family.
Everything.
And just one more word. You ready? Fulfillment.
Balance.
Awesome. Paul, thanks for being on the show.
Great, thank you.
Hey guys, Quinton here. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Paul. I certainly did. I want to share with you my number one biggest takeaway that I've taken from that interview and have applied into my business. And that is what Paul referred to as sound bites. Now what sound bites are is really just small, concise, specific bullet points of information that you as a leader need to communicate to your team when it comes to goals for today, for this week, for this month, or even this year. Now I know as entrepreneurs we have these massive visions, and as we need to learn how to communicate that vision, and what a lot of our vision lacks is clarity. And as sound bites really just break down that vision, unpack it so that our team have really just something to focus on that they can get accomplished that day. So guys, if you enjoyed that interview, and if you want to know more about how to become a millionaire, their mindset, really just how to break past limiting beliefs of self-doubt and how they overcome that, then you need to watch this video over here.